Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is your brother Gabriel Romaani, and again for my tazkiyah, we're taking your questions. Today we're talking about the effects of pornography on mental health. And there are psychological and emotional impacts on individuals due to pornography. And pornography, as we said before, it's a bit different than any other forms of addiction because it is linked to something that is innate in a human being, which is the need to have intimacy, the need to be connected. And number one, what we need to understand is the emotional and psychological implications of consuming this material and the absence of organic halal intimacy. Just the absence itself, abstinence can lead a person to psychological and physiological issues, let alone replacing that need with something that is haram. So number one, it starts usually with anxiety. Anxiety because it increases to when we talked a lot about the dopamine effect and how the dopamine threshold is raised and not being able to get that fulfilling satisfaction that you would get from intimacy. And also not to mention the ethical implications, which we're going to discuss, inshallah. But basically, there's this irritability, this restlessness, preoccupation, because the absence of it due to the addiction is going to cause these feelings. So another person is very anxious, very irritable. Parents can notice that they're very angry. This very much coincides with that teenage behavior that we see quite often. A lot of it is because of the absence of halal intimacy and the view of the pornographic content. Plus, of course, the cognitive dissonance, the secrecy, the shame associated, and so on. That leads to anxiety. Now, untreated anxiety, of course, is going to lead to depression because over time, the individual feels like, look, it's like you're hopeless, you have guilt, you're sad because you're not able to control, but also because you're not able to satisfy that craving properly. All right, so that leads to depression. Then, of course, low self-esteem because you feel like you're not good. You feel like you have these unrealistic expectations. People might try to get married. People might try to engage with the reality of trying to marry, which is very difficult today, and that can lead to a huge low self-esteem. And of course, comparison. Men compare themselves as well. Women compare themselves to those porn stars, to the way they perform, to their looks, and this is going to lead to low self-esteem. We find this in women very, very much, predominantly women, because they want to look like those beautiful women, supposedly. And of course, with men as well, when they compare the size of their manhood. This is huge now in men as well. It leads to a lot of low self-esteem. Relationship issues, the ability or inability to connect properly with a real man or woman when they get married, right? So you get desensitized to the sexual stimuli, to what expectations you might have. And again, that's going to cause a lot of guilt, a lot of anxiety, a lot of suspicion, and so on. Escalation. With many addictions, it's going to escalate to consumption of extreme forms of pornography, not to mention really, things that are going to pervert your sexuality. We find this ongoing, a very, very interesting pattern where it actually leads to someone changing their sexuality and becoming homosexual. And not to mention, it can escalate to zina and other forms of haram. And time and productivity, of course, you feel like you can't do anything, you can't fulfill your duties. Some people lose their jobs, some people have problems with their families, just not being able to be in shape, to go to the gym, the need and desire, that dopamine drive and chase that you would do in halal, that's missing. And of course, social isolation, away from your friends due to shame, away from people. You feel like you can fulfill your needs just this way. This has huge ramifications for you later on in life. So these are some of the important effects on mental health. It's huge these days. It can lead people to losing hope, leaving Islam, and even suicide. May Allah protect from that.